the creation of order, and this is something, it's like many things. It's like, broken windows policing or something is another example of this, where you're sort of having to explain this concept of governance that was just never even questioned before 1750 or so. And so, we the people, and this is one of the reasons why I'm against democracy, is we the people do not have the faintest idea of how to do our job.
You need a collective from which to be individuated, from which to be an individual, right? It doesn't exist otherwise. And you cannot have a collective unless you have a group of individuals coming together. So I think it's similar. You need some kind of order in order for freedom to happen, right? In writing, there's all these poetic forms, the sonnet and the haiku and all these sorts of things. And the structure is very rigid, right? You are very confined in what you are able to do. But for some reason, many artists, including myself, feel an immense amount of freedom when working within those confines, right? So I think it's about figuring out what the balance is. And that depends on, the circumstances and what it is you're trying to do. So it's a hard question to answer, really.
Not only I really don't disagree with anything Angel said. In fact, I agree pretty enthusiastically with it. I want to offer maybe a slightly different metaphor, which is that sort of the opposition between these two things is not, I would say, a valid dichotomy. The metaphor that I use more often is that liberty depends on law. You can't have liberty without law. There's no such thing as liberty without law. And so what we're really talking about here is, and this is something that was felt very, very deeply by the founders' generation. They were all, one thing that you get, the impression that you get if you read, the world of the 18th century, is that this is a nation of like law nerds, basically. It's really strange. And from our perspective, but you don't have liberty without law. Law, you don't have rights without law. You don't have liberty without rights. That's fairly straightforward. And I would argue that, again, to echo exactly what Angel said, you don't have law without order. And the metaphor that I usually use to describe how you don't have law without order is that I would say that lawful order is a kind of unstable equilibrium. And for those of you without a strong physics background, an unstable equilibrium is like a pencil balanced on its point. So the closer you get to the point of the pencil, the less force is needed, the less arbitrary, unpredictable force is needed to hold the pencil upright. If you made that pencil the size of a telephone pole and you stood on a ladder next to it, you could probably hold it up with your hand, because you would never let the telephone pole size pencil get far enough from top dead center. You'd be pushing back against it at even the slightest motions. This is how a person can hold a 1,200 pound Harley or something balanced. 800 pound, I don't know. And so when you're looking at that situation where the pencil is perfectly balanced on its point, and law and order really pertain in that society, you would say two things. You would say the best government is when the pencil is upright, and the less force you're applying to that, the better. This is all true. However, when your pencil the size of a telephone pole is lying on its side, that regimen is it's like Newtonian physics in a relativistic context. It's right, Newtonian physics is perfectly right for a tennis ball, but for protons traveling at half light speed, it's extremely wrong. So the sort of the libertarian ideals that I imbibed from Mises and Rothbard and Hayek and many great lights of libertarian writing, really, I don't disagree with any of those points, but that is a sort of Newtonian regimen for a system, a polity in which law and order pertains. If you think about basically, in that conversation with Ben Burgess, which didn't go super well, I sort of challenged him to extend, his knowledge about the government of Norway to the governance of Haiti, in which I believe the de facto most powerful person in Haiti now is a gang leader named Barbecue. He's trying to he's I think he just released his embargo on energy across the port or something. It's really it's a pretty extreme situation, and Ben, who is a very, very, very good liberal, was telling me that what Haiti really needed was a higher minimum wage, which may or may not be true. But it sort of seems less applicable to the problem of barbecue. So the question of how you take a place such as Haiti or Venezuela, Venezuela is perhaps a better example. This is the country with the most natural resources in South America. Not coincidentally, it's suffering from what development economists call the resource curse, even if they don't necessarily understand it. And it's prostrate to anarchy. And there are these sort of anarchic forces called turbas, the kind of local communist revolutionary militias that are part of the Maduro regime. Crime is immense. This is a society in complete chaos. And so when you ask how to apply libertarianism to this situation of the pencil very much lying on its side, possibly even in a ditch, possibly even somewhat buried, and you say, well, the right way to govern is to move your hand as gently as possible on the eraser of the pencil, you're just not in reality. And so the creation of order, and this is something, it's like many things. It's like, broken windows policing or something is another example of this, where you're sort of having to explain this concept of governance that was just never even questioned before 1750 or so. And so, we the people, and this is one of the reasons why I'm against democracy, is we the people do not have the faintest idea of how to do our job. And so, that's both the case for order above law, order before law, and, the case against, the situation in which we pretend to govern even though we have no capacity to govern.